Hi, my name is Henry Baltazar. I'm a research director at 451 Research, and my area of coverage is storage. Storage continues to be a major issue for many of the organizations we're talking to today, and there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, the biggest problem is data growth, and it's not surprising when I talk to organizations, and many of them are growing at 20, 30, even 40% per year, just compounding that problem year after year after year. Another key thing that we're hearing about in terms of big problems is the ability to deliver disaster recovery, especially as more and more organizations try to find a better way to improve the resiliency of their operations. A third thing that also comes up a lot is the fears of security and compliance and how they can make sure they're protecting the data that they're storing across their environment. Another key problem we're hearing about is performance. Organizations more and more want to have performance consistency and also want to have top-line performance to make sure they can run their workloads at the right pace when they need to, especially when they need to get to a business outcome quickly. Finally, and something not to forget about, is the last thing people are complaining about often is the high cost of storage from a CapEx basis. And with that in mind, that's why we're starting to see more and more organizations investigating new OpEx-based models and services models to be able to get away from the high CapEx costs typically associated with on-premises storage. I think one of the most important things to keep in mind for service providers is they need to provide flexibility for their companies and their customers. And by that, we're talking about having multiple storage tiers using multiple different types of technologies, whether it be flash, hybrid, disk, or even the latest and greatest in terms of storage class memory going forward. Another thing that we need to keep in mind is the need to have performance elasticity. And by that, we're talking about the ability not only to add performance on the fly, but also to reduce the consumption of expensive performance resources when they're not needed. That's going to be a key element in terms of reducing cost, and it's something that's also going to help with customer experience. Finally, organizations, these service providers need to make sure they're providing proactive monitoring for their customers, so the customers can have a real understanding of what's going on with the workloads and best ways to optimize those going forward, because that's really going to be another key way that we're going to reduce costs into the future. Disaster recovery continues to be a key business requirement, especially as organizations take their availability more seriously. Another thing that's also driving disaster recovery is compliance requirements for organizations, especially in areas such as healthcare. One of the key things we look at in terms of disaster recovery is it continues to be a very difficult process, both in terms of setting it up and maintaining it for organizations. And I think that's a key area where service providers can add value, especially in terms of helping organizations do a better job with their testing and also verification of recoveries. Another key thing that we're looking at in terms of why disaster recovery is moving to cloud is because a lot of organizations we're talking to want to get out of the business of building data centers around the world and to be able to manage them for disaster recovery purposes. The elasticity of cloud is becoming a nice substitute for that, and we're seeing more and more organizations looking at investigating that option. I think one of the key things that service providers need to give their customers is insight. More and more, I'd like to see service providers make sure they can go in and help organizations with their capacity planning so they can understand what's going on with their workloads, how fast they're growing, and what resources they'll actually need in the future. It's going to be important for us in terms of how we deal with our cost control. Another key thing and key part of that is also the ability to do workload analysis and tiering on that storage. There's a huge cost differential between the low-cost archive storage versus the high-performance storage. And when workloads no longer need that high-performance resource, we need to do a better job of tiering to make sure that they're not consuming the expensive things when they actually don't need that level of performance. Finally, another key capability is also in terms of how we can meet security requirements. And by that, service providers need to provide encryption on multiple levels, whether it be data at flight or data at rest, and they need to help organizations do a better job of maintaining that security as they store it in their repositories.